In 2016, the most American brand in your kitchen was quietly sold to a company headquartered in Qingdao, China. They paid $5.6 billion, and the contract gave them the right to keep printing the letters GE on refrigerators sold to American families until the year 2056. Most homeowners still have no idea. We are going to expose how 4 corporations gutted American appliance manufacturing, why your new fridge dies in 7 years when your grandmother's lasted 40, and the only 4 brands still genuinely built in the United States that you should actually spend your money on. If you are about to buy a washer, a dryer, a refrigerator, or a stand mixer, the next 15 minutes will save you thousands of dollars and decades of frustration. If you walk into a Best Buy or a Lowe's today, you might believe you are looking at a competitive American marketplace. You see names like General Electric, Maytag, KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Frigidaire, LG, and Samsung. You assume these are all different companies fighting to build a better appliance for your family. That is an illusion. The reality is that the brand on the front of the box almost never matches the country printed on the shipping label. General Electric, the company Thomas Edison helped found, is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Haier Smart Home Company in Qingdao, China. Frigidaire is owned by Electrolux of Sweden. LG and Samsung are South Korean conglomerates that only built American factories under threat of tariffs. And Maytag, the brand whose entire identity is the lonely repairman waiting for a call that never comes, has been a Whirlpool subsidiary since 2006. With most of its washers and refrigerators now built in Mexico. The American appliance industry has been hollowed out brand by brand over the last 25 years. The labels stayed, the factories left, and the lifespan of the average kitchen appliance collapsed from 25 years down to 7. But the most damning part is that 2 of these foreign-owned brands still legally market themselves as American icons, and the average homeowner has no way to tell the difference at the showroom. So how exactly did we lose an entire industry? To understand what happened, you have to go back to 2006. On April 1st of that year, Whirlpool Corporation closed its $1.7 billion acquisition of Maytag. Maytag was not just any company. It had been founded in 1893 in Newton, Iowa by Frederick Lewis Maytag. By the 1920s, Newton was known nationally as the washing machine capital of the world. The town had 6 different appliance manufacturers, with Maytag dominant. The company employed roughly 3,000 people in a town of 16,000. The corporate headquarters had an address called 1 Dependability Square. 6 weeks after the deal closed, on May 10, 2006, Whirlpool announced it was eliminating approximately 4,500 jobs and shutting the Newton headquarters, the Heron, Illinois plant, and the Searcy, Arkansas dryer plant. By October 2007, the last washer rolled off the Newton assembly line. Mike Duffus, who had worked at Maytag for 34 years, told CBS News that most of the people would say if you were to cut them, they would bleed Maytag blue. Pete Slings, a 20-year veteran of the plant, said he showed up for work at 7 in the morning, and by 7:15 had been told the entire factory was closing. Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack publicly stated the loss of jobs would not be easy to swallow. The Maytag repairman, the famous loneliest guy in town, had been invented by the Leo Burnett ad agency in 1967. The original actor Jesse White played the role for over 20 years across 68 commercials. The whole joke was that Maytags never broke. 40 years later, the joke turned into prophecy. The repairman really was alone because there was no one left in Newton to repair anything. Whirlpool spokesman Jeff Noel justified the shutdown by saying the company was committed to best cost, best quality, and best distribution. Translation: the cost of paying American workers in Iowa was too high. And the most cynical part is that even today, in 2026, the Maytag corporate website still calls itself, quote, America's home appliance company. The factory is gone, the marketing remained, and that closure was just the warm-up. Because 7 years later, an even bigger American name was about to be sold to a company that did not even share the same continent. On January 15, 2016, General Electric announced it had agreed to sell its entire appliance business to Qingdao Haier of China for $5.4 billion. The deal closed on June 6 of that same year at a final price of $5.6 billion. General Electric had been making appliances since 1905. The Louisville, Kentucky campus, called Appliance Park, had been the global headquarters since 1951. It was a 6 million square foot facility on 750 acres. And the part that almost no one talks about is the licensing agreement buried inside the sale. Haier did not just buy the factories and the patents. They bought the right to print the letters GE on appliances sold to American consumers for 40 years, until the year 2056. Every GE branded refrigerator, dishwasher, oven, and stove sold in America for the next 3 decades has been pre-sold by contract to a company in Qingdao. Haier's chairman, Liang Haishan, publicly described the acquisition as a key part of Haier's strategy to grow inside the United States. The Federal Committee on Foreign Investment, known as CFIUS, reviewed the sale and approved it without objection. 2 years later, in 2018, Congress passed the Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act specifically to tighten the rules around Chinese acquisitions of American assets. They closed the barn door after the most iconic American appliance brand had already walked out of it. But here is where it gets stranger. Because while GE was being shipped to China, the South Koreans were quietly taking over the rest of the showroom. By 2023, Samsung held 20.9% of the American appliance market and LG held 18.8%. Combined, 2 Korean conglomerates control roughly 40% of every appliance sold in the United States. They only opened American factories in 2018 in Newberry, South Carolina, and Clarksville, Tennessee. And they only did it because the first Trump administration imposed a steep tariff on imported washing machines that left them no choice. 20% on the first 1.2 million units, 50% above quota. Their own executives have publicly described those factories as a tariff workaround, not a commitment, and the appliances themselves have gotten dramatically worse. Consumer Reports surveys found that 31% of refrigerators with ice makers fail within the first 5 years. Independent appliance technicians now estimate the average lifespan of a modern fridge at 7 to 10 years. Compare that to the 1970s GE units that are still running in basements 40 years later. But the worst part is not even the failure rate. It is what happens when these foreign appliances do break. The manufacturers refuse to share the repair manuals. A 2024 investigation by the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, working with iFixit, found that LG and Samsung are the 2 worst manufacturers in the entire industry for blocking access to repair documentation, even for certified technicians. iFixit publicly ended its repair partnership with Samsung in mid-2024, citing a fundamental misalignment with the company's repair philosophy. To get full GE service documentation, an independent shop has to pay over $900 a year for portal access. Your appliance is engineered to fail and engineered to be unfixable when it does. So, is there anything left worth buying? The honest answer is yes, but only 4. The first is Speed Queen, headquartered in Ripon, Wisconsin, where the company has been making washing machines since 1908. Their Ripon factory sits on 58 acres across 5 buildings and roughly 2 million square feet of manufacturing space, employing about 2,500 people. Speed Queen officially engineers every residential washer to last 10,400 cycles. That is exactly 25 years at 8 loads a week. Their first-year service rate is around 3.6%. Industry average is closer to 15%. They cost roughly $1,300 instead of $700. They refuse to sell through Home Depot, Lowe's, or Best Buy, and they outlast modern competitors by a factor of 3. After a controversial 2018 redesign forced by federal energy compliance rules, customer revolt forced them to bring back the traditional standalone metal transmission and dual-action agitator in a model called the TC5. They listened to the loyalists. Almost no other appliance company would have. The second is Sub-Zero, founded in 1945 in Madison, Wisconsin by Westie Baki. Baca originally built his prototype freezer by hand in his basement during World War II, bending the coils himself, trying to keep his diabetic son's insulin cold. 80 years later, the company is still privately owned by the 3rd generation of Bakis, currently led by Jim Baki. They still refuse to go public, and they just announced a $196 million expansion of their new Cedar Rapids, Iowa plant on top of the original $140.6 million facility. Sub-Zero's built-in refrigerators run from roughly $8,000 to $18,000 and are commonly cited as lasting 20 years or more. The third is KitchenAid stand mixers, built at 1701 KitchenAid Way in Greenville, Ohio, since 1941. The Greenville plant produces about 3 million stand mixers a year using a design unchanged since the industrial designer Egmont Ahrens drew it in 1937. The original Hobart Manufacturing Company supplied 80-quart commercial mixers to U.S. Navy battleships in 1917 before pivoting to home models. Julia Child sent her old K5A back to the Greenville factory in 1999, and it sits in the museum there to this day, signed in cobalt blue. And the fourth is Whirlpool's core American plant network. The Clyde, Ohio washing machine plant is the largest in the world at 2.4 million square feet and roughly 3,400 workers. It has produced 155 million washers since 1952. The Marion, Ohio dryer plant is 70 years old and employs around 2,000 people. There are also active plants in Findlay, Ohio for dishwashers, Tulsa, Oklahoma for ranges, and Amana, Iowa for refrigerators, although the Amana plant is currently being slowly bled out, with 341 more layoffs filed in March 2026 as Whirlpool quietly shifts production to Ramos Arizpe, Mexico. Whirlpool itself states that 80% of the major appliances it sells in the United States are built in the United States, compared to a competitor average of around 25%. So the dream is not dead. You just have to know where to look, and you have to be willing to walk past every illuminated showroom display until you find an independent dealer who carries the real thing. The era of widespread American appliance manufacturing is mostly over, and the surviving brands are not the ones with the loudest commercials. They are the ones quietly running the same Wisconsin and Ohio factories they have been running for 100 years. The marketing departments at GE and Maytag are counting on you not to read the fine print. They are counting on you to be distracted by smart features and touch screens so you do not notice that your fridge is built to die before your mortgage is paid off. But if you check the country of ownership, check the actual factory address, and check the design lifespan, you can still buy an American machine that will outlast your kids. Do not let Haier, Whirlpool's offshore arms, Samsung, and LG take your retirement money for a product designed to break the day after the warranty ends. Verify the parent company, verify the plant city, and never underestimate the value of a Wisconsin factory that has been doing the same thing for a century. If you found this useful, hit subscribe for more stories like this.